In the 1980s, there was this idea of rolling devolution, a gradual handing back of power as the violence decreased, but it never really happened. The IRA prisoners in the Maze prison used blanket protests, then dirty protests, and then hunger strikes in the early 80s, which included the death of Bobby Sands after he had been elected in a by-election. After that, new laws were brought in to forbid people serving more than 1 year's jail term from actually standing for and being nominated as candidates in UK elections. This death of Bobby Sands led to an increasement in recruitment for the Provisional IRA, and Sinn Féin, the political wing, started contesting elections in the north and the south, and there was a rise in their support. Libya, meanwhile, had been arming the IRA since the mid-70s, but after the hunger strikes impressed Gaddafi, and as a response to Thatcher allowing American bombing, Gaddafi stepped up weapon supplies and explosive supplies to the IRA. In 1984 there was the Brighton bomb, in which Thatcher only just escaped being executed by the IRA, and all this time British government said it wasn't talking to terrorists, but they were in secret. In 1985 there was the Anglo-Irish Agreement. It gave the Irish government an advisory role in the Northern Irish government. It confirmed there would be no change in constitutional position of Northern Ireland unless the majority of its people wanted to join the Republic. The majority of Conservatives voted for it, apart from a few pro-unionists, and Labour mainly voted for it, apart from lefties like Tony Benn who wanted to be totally out of Ireland, and the Alliance, SDP, Liberal Alliance, voted for it as well. In Northern Ireland, the Unionists rejected it. Again, it gave the South a role, and they had been excluded from it. They organised protests and they all resigned. The Republicans rejected it because it confirmed Northern Ireland's status as a part of the UK. It did improve intergovernmental cooperation between the Republic of Ireland and Great Britain, and can therefore be seen as a stepping stone to peace. Between 1986 and 1993 there was a rise in violence again. For example, Gibraltar, Enniskillen, and even a mortar attack on number 10 Downing Street. There were, however, key relationships forged in this period: John Major and Albert Reynolds, Gerry Adams of Sinn Féin and John Hume of the SDLP, and then finally Blair and Bertie Ahern. The Downing Street Declaration in 1993 was between John Major and Albert Reynolds, and it said the people of Ireland should decide to bring about a united Ireland if it is their wish, and only if it is their wish. After 2 years of negotiations, it was finalised. Major himself was instinctively on the side of the Unionists as a Tory, and also needed them as he only had a small majority, but the fact that he was Conservative meant there was no Tory backlash, says Rowe, as there might have been under a Labour Prime Minister. The American President Bill Clinton was also involved and instrumental in this period as well. In 1994 the IRA and the Loyalists announced a ceasefire, but the IRA broke it in 1996. A new ceasefire was announced in 1997. In 1998 the Belfast Agreement, also known as the Good Friday Agreement or the Stormont Agreement, was made. It was signed by the UK and Ireland and endorsed by most of Northern Ireland's political parties, apart from the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party. It was endorsed by Northern Ireland voters in a referendum, and in the South voters voted in a referendum there to change their constitution to shore up Northern Ireland's political position and constitutional position. It established the Northern Ireland Assembly, which was on a power sharing across community principle. There are major changes to the Constitution of Northern Ireland. Any major changes to the Constitution of Northern Ireland can only follow votes in both North and the South, which agree to it. It follows and includes a Downing Street Declaration that it's up to the people of North and South and not the governments of those countries. So referendums must be held. It allowed for conditional early release of political prisoners or terrorists, depending on which point of view you've got. It called for a reform of the police and the withdrawing of most troops, and Northern Irish people can consider themselves Irish, British, or both. After the Good Friday Agreement, the Assembly was suspended several times. For example, in 2002, allegations that the IRA had been spying on it caused it to be suspended. In September 2005, the IRA decommissioned all their weapons, and the UVF decommissioned a year later in 2006. The St Andrews Agreement in 2006 restored the Northern Ireland Assembly. Sinn Féin agreed to support the police service of Northern Ireland, the courts and the law as well, and it devolved policing and justice powers to Northern Ireland. So let's have a look at some historical interpretation. This is from Ian Paisley of the Democratic Union Party, who was a strong unionist, addressing a crowd about the Anglo-Irish Agreement in 1985. Where did the terrorists operate from? From the Irish Republic. Where did the terrorists return to for sanctuary? To the Irish Republic. And yet Mrs Thatcher tells us that the Republic must have some say in our province. We say never, 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 never. Just imagine a more Northern Irish accent for that one. The UUP leader, James Molyneux, spoke of the stench of hypocrisy, deceit and treachery. Thatcher was taken back by the ferocity of the Unionist response, and in her memoir she said that the reaction was worse than anyone had predicted to me. She furthermore claimed that the agreement was in the tradition of British governments refraining from security policies that might alienate the Irish government and Irish nationalist opinion in Ulster, in the hope of winning their support against the IRA. Thatcher regretted signing it. Sinn Féin's president, Gerry Adams, denounced the agreement. The formal recognition of the partition of Ireland is a disaster for the nationalist cause. It far outweighs the powerless consultative role given to Dublin. So that's another different historical interpretation. Seamus Mullen of the SDLP declared that the Good Friday Agreement of 1998 was Sunningdale for slow learners. Marion Price went one further and said the Good Friday Agreement was Sunningdale for retards, in reference to Mullen's quote. Northern Ireland Secretary Peter Hain called the agreement an astonishing breakthrough. Irish President Bertie Ahern said that the deadlines set by the two governments were not met from the Good Friday Agreement. The plan falters and there will be a move to Plan B with no more discussions. Martin McGuinness, the Deputy First Minister and ex-Sinn Féin member, said to the press, "Up till the 26th of March this year, Ian Paisley and I never had a conversation about anything, not even about the weather, and now we have worked very closely together over the last 7 months and there's been no angry words between us. This shows we are set for a new course." Rose says Thatcher had strong unionist sympathies. He also says Bobby Sands became a nationalist hero. Sinn Féin saw the advantages of using the ballot box and the gun. Rose says the successful outcome of the peace process in Northern Ireland was a personal triumph for Blair, who devoted most of his first year to it. There were many factors apart from Blair, but his personal commitment was vital. Eamon Collins says on the Downing Street Declaration, "I'd like to think that both sides looked down into a Bosnia-style abyss, gulped and then stepped back." One of Blair's aides said, "You can never slide a cigarette paper between Blair and Ahern." Okay, that was a long one, but I'm done now, so bye bye.